New video from the Washington Post appears to show a person suspected of planting pipe bombs near the U.S. Capitol the night before a mob stormed the building earlier this month. You can see the video from January 5th here. The suspect with a backpack is reportedly believed to be walking toward the area near the Republican National Committee building. Another video from a few minutes later shows the same person approach the area where the bomb was discovered the next day. CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins me now with more. Hi, Catherine. So we understand the FBI has upped the reward for information about the two pipe bombs to $100,000. What more do we know based on this new evidence?
Well, Tanya, this new reward tells us a lot about the state of play in the investigation. Upping the reward to $100,000 tells us that identifying who or what was behind the pipe bombs is a central element to the broader investigation. And number two, based on my reporting here at CBS News and then also my 2 decades of covering this issue, it indicates that the FBI doesn't have a lot of good leads at this point as to who was behind the pipe bombs. And let me explain why. The 2 devices were found, the first at the RNC at 12:45 on January 6th, and then the second at the DNC at 1:15. And they were both rendered safe, and that's ATF and FBI speak for a small explosion that disrupts the device so it loses its explosive capability. And when you look at the devices, they were both pipe bombs. That usually involves knocking the cap off one or both ends of the device. But that can have the effect of destroying the all-important forensic evidence that's on the device. So DNA, fingerprints, hair fibers. There should have been a lot on these devices because if you also look closely, you see there's a lot of black electrician's tape, and that's notorious for capturing DNA unless you're an exceptionally skilled bomb maker and you wear gloves. The other thing I would draw your attention to is that kitchen timer. If you look real closely at the kitchen timer, there should be what looks like a bent paper clip, and it's just on one side of the zero. So in an ideal world, it should tick down on the timer, and when it hits the paper clip, that is when the electrical circuit kicks in and you should have the explosion. So one of the working theories of the case is that there was a poor electrical and mechanical connection, and that's why the devices failed to detonate on the 6th.
Oh, wow. So interesting. So why are these pipe bombs so important to the sedition task force?
Well, it goes, Tanya, to this critical window, 12:45 to 1:15. And as you know from your reporting, it's right before 1 o'clock that first group pushes on to the Capitol campus as they begin to breach the buildings. So the question for investigators has been from the get-go, were these pipe bombs complementary to the breach of the building? Were they designed to pull first responders away from the Capitol to make the security weaker so it was easier to breach the building, or were they designed to injure and maim individuals who are evacuating from the Capitol and likely politicians to the RNC and the DNC? Or option 2 is that this is entirely separate from these groups that breached the Capitol. It was done to capitalize on the Trump rally earlier in the day, and they decided to pick political targets on both sides of the spectrum because for them it's about creating anarchy and uncertainty rather than a political message.
Wow. All right. So what are we learning also about the new indictments today, and how close are investigators to sedition charges?
Well, we're well beyond 160 individuals who are facing federal charges, and there are 400 open case files, which means there are at least 400 individuals the FBI is scrutinizing for charges in the future. I've been told through my reporting with a senior law enforcement official that there are 2 primary cases that are getting a lot of scrutiny right now as likely cases for sedition charges. Sedition would be the ultimate charge in these cases, and that can have a maximum of 20 years in prison. And those cases involve alleged members of the Oath Keepers, that's Caldwell, Crowell, and Watkins, and then a second case, Robert Gieswein, and he's alleged member of the 3 Percenters. Those, I'm told, are the 2 cases to really watch.
Such interesting developments, fabulous reporting. Catherine Herridge, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, for sure.